Coming up today, prosecutors begin their probe into allegations a recently deceased businessman had given huge sums of money to senior politicians. The scandal is expected to dominate this week's questioning session of government officials at the National Assembly. Korea's traditionally strong manufacturing sector is limping along in the 0% growth range, but in terms of manpower, the number of people employed in the sector stands at a 17-year high. Plus, the Korean government is convening an interagency meeting today to assess the security situation in Libya after the Korean embassy in Tripoli came under a deadly armed attack. These stories and more coming right up. Hello, it's noon on Monday, the 13th of April. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thanks ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this afternoon, the brewing corruption scandal surrounding several heavyweight politicians is expected to dominate a four-day interpellation session at Korea's National Assembly that kicked off roughly an hour ago. The main opposition party has vowed to use the session to probe deeper into the scandal, which centres around allegations that politicians, including Prime Minister Lee Wang-gu, two former key aides to President Park Geun-hye, and several ruling party lawmakers took bribes from former Gyeongnam Enterprises CEO Song Wan-jong, who committed suicide last week. The prosecution launched a full-scale investigation into these allegations on this Monday. On Sunday, President Park Geun-hye called on the prosecution to be thorough in its investigations. The two former aides to the president that are on the list have vowed to cooperate with prosecutors. The government is convening an emergency meeting after two Libyan police officers were killed on Sunday in an armed attack on Korea's embassy in Tripoli. An official says the government will hold a meeting of relevant authorities on Monday afternoon to discuss how to best protect the 30 or so Korean nationals staying in Libya. The official added that the two Korean diplomats and one embassy staffer in Tripoli may be moved to Tunisia, where a temporary office has been set up. Officials in Seoul have been scrambling to confirm whether or not the gunmen were trying to directly target the Korean embassy. However, a local source told Korea's Yonhap news agency that the attack was most likely aimed at killing the embassy's guards, a group which says it's the Tripoli branch of the Islamic State militant group has claimed responsibility for the attack. The leaders of Korea and Turkmenistan have been seeking ways to bolster their bilateral cooperation during the Turkmen president's state visit on this Monday, meeting for the second time following President Park's trip to the Central Asian country last year. They focused on areas of infrastructure and plant construction and science and technology, as well as expanding people-to-people exchanges. Turkmenistan's massive energy and infrastructure projects hold great potential for Korean firms seeking to win overseas orders. Now, President Park's spokesperson said the visit is expected to help bolster Korea's Eurasia initiative, which seeks to link energy and logistics infrastructure from the Far East to Europe, lay the groundwork for regional peace and impact the global economy. A group of doctors in Japan have taken action to criticize the Japanese government for its attempts to hide and distort history. They are urging the Shinzo Abe administration to set the record straight on Japan's notorious Unit 731 that committed some unspeakable atrocities before and during World War II. Son Jung-in reports.
A group of Japanese doctors held a special exhibition in Kyoto over the weekend to demand the truth behind the atrocities committed by Unit 731, the Japanese Army's biological warfare division during World War II. The exhibition gave detailed explanations of the brutal experiments the unit performed on around 10,000 civilians and prisoners of war from Korea, China, and Mongolia from 1935 to 1945. Despite the barbarous experiments, including freezing or skinning people alive, the members involved in the unit were not convicted for their war crimes. The United States secretly granted them immunity from prosecution in return for the data they got from the vivisections. Officials of the unit also received doctorates and went on to become renowned scientists. 70 years after the war, some doctors in Japan are taking action to try and set history straight.
Why did this happen? What exactly happened? We need to first answer these questions correctly.
However, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe still refuses to publicly release the related data. This is in marked contrast to Germany, which convicted 23 medical doctors for their crimes in 1946. 손정인, Arirang News.
Now, it's believed the secretary of North Korea's ruling Workers' Party, Park Do-chun, has held on to a senior role within the regime's leadership despite speculation he may have been purged. During the North's 13th Supreme People's Assembly last week, Park was removed from the powerful 10-member National Defense Commission. He was replaced by Kim Chun-sop, a former party secretary in charge of the border province of Jagangdo. However, Park was seen seated in the leadership line at the Assembly in video footage released by the North state-run Korean Central Television on Sunday. The party's newspaper, Nodong Shinmun, also mentioned that Park was a comrade of Kim Young-nam, the president of the Assembly, in a clear indication that he has retained a position of power within the leadership. Now, South Korea's manufacturing sector, which has been the heartbeat, really, of the nation's economy for many decades, has been having a torrid time over the past couple of years. But while annual growth has been stumbling along in the 0% range for the past couple of years, the number of people employed in the industry is at its highest point since the late 1990s. Kim Min-ji reports.
The number of jobs in Korea's manufacturing industry has been on an upward trend for 32 straight months, hitting a 17-year high. Statistics Korea says over 4.4 million people had jobs in the sector in February, up 3.7% from a year ago. The industry has added new jobs steadily since the 1970s, before job growth slowed in the wake of the Asian financial crisis, and then again during the 2008 global financial crisis. But growth picked up on the back of the economic recovery and has been on a steady rise since 2010. Production in the manufacturing sector grew nearly 17% on year in 2010 and 6% in 2011. But what's notable now is that production in the manufacturing sector has slowed sharply. The industry has only recorded growth in the 0% range since 2013. Experts say this mismatch in expansion is driven by the creation of new types of manufacturing jobs and more people in their 50s and 60s actively looking for work. They also point to an increased number of foreigners working in the sector, with more than 410,000 employed in 2014, up about 10% from the previous year. But some experts have voiced concerns that the phenomenon could lead to employment without growth. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Korea's import and export prices have jumped for the second month in a row, due largely to the weakening Korean won. In local currency terms, Bank of Korea data shows the country's export price index recorded a 0.9% rise from the previous month to 84.46 index points. The central bank attributed this increase to the rise in the export value of chemical products, which jumped 4%. Import prices gained 0.4% from February as the impact of the weakening local currency offset the dip in oil prices. The won dropped by 1.3% against the greenback during the month of March. The government proposed a plan last year to raise Korea's employment rate by creating more part-time jobs with flexible work hours, and recent numbers show the plan seems to be working. Won Ji-yeon tells us more.
There's been a huge jump in the number of people who are taking advantage of a flex-time employment program that's funded by the government. According to a recent report from Korea's Labor Ministry, nearly 4,700 people were employed as part-time civil servants in the first quarter of this year. That's nearly 10 times more than the 459 employed in the same period last year. The government had created the system to provide more opportunities for people who are unable to work full-time, like mothers who have had to quit their jobs to raise children. The part-time employees are allowed to work 15 to 30 hours a week with flexible schedules. And the government funds their pay, which is about 20 to 30% higher than the minimum wage and growing. This year, the flex-time workers were paid an average of $8.60 per hour, which is $1.70 more than what they made 2 years ago. That helped lift their monthly salary to roughly $1,200, about $100 more than they made in the same period last year. The ministry also said the system has improved worker satisfaction and productivity. As of now, the flex-time positions are mainly available in the service sector, hospitals, and big conglomerates. But the ministry says it will eventually expand the program to include more fields such as marketing and accounting. Won Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Hillary Clinton has officially announced her second run for the White House, and this time around, her campaign has made some drastic changes to try and win over voters. Clinton, who lost her last bid for the Democratic ticket to President Barack Obama, is presenting herself as a more approachable candidate who understands the needs of the average American. Kim Hyun-bin tells us more.
It's official. Hillary Clinton will take another run at the presidency, casting herself as a champion for the average American, with a vow to create a level playing field for those who are struggling from tough economic times. Clinton is currently the leading Democratic candidate in the 2016 race and has few expected rivals. According to a recent Reuters Ipsos poll, she is backed by more than 60% of Democrats. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, who says is not running, came in a distant second with 18%. Former Virginia Senator Jim Webb and former Maryland Governor Marion O'Malley are possible Democratic candidates, but were in the single digits in the poll. But she'll still have to overcome the lingering criticism from her last campaign that she's out of touch with the average citizen. After all, Clinton has been one of the most famous figures in the United States for the past decade, as a former Secretary of State and wife of former President Bill Clinton. And so far, her run for office has gained praise from government ministers in France and Germany. To overcome her pedigree, she has shifted her launch message from "I'm in it to win" to something warmer and more empathetic. The message on her website is, "Everyday Americans need a champion. I want to be that champion." She also lost ground the last time around, as her last campaign was seen as less adept than that of her main rival, President Barack Obama, at using technology to convey her message. This time, she launched her campaign with a flurry of video, email, and social media announcements, including one email saying she's going to work her heart out to earn every single vote. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Now, Korea is a nation of meat lovers on the whole, and recent data shows Koreans are consuming more of the stuff than ever. The Agriculture Ministry says the average Korean chomped through nearly 43 kilograms of meat last year. That's nearly 4 times more pork, chicken and beef than Koreans ate in 1984. While meat consumption has skyrocketed, Koreans are eating far less rice than they used to. The ministry says the average Korean polished off 67 kilograms of rice last year. Sounds a lot, but that's half the amount they ate 30 years ago. A ministry official attributed the changes to rising income levels and Koreans' increasingly westernized eating habits. Any cancer diagnosis is frightening, but finding out that you have a particularly aggressive, difficult-to-treat variety of the disease is even more terrifying. Now, a team of scientists from Korea has found a clue that may increase treatment options for those very challenging cases. Our Park Se-young has a story.
Anti-hormone therapy is successful in treating many breast cancer patients, like this woman. However, about 1 in 5 patients have triple-negative breast cancer, which is more aggressive and difficult to treat. Hormonal therapy doesn't work on this type of cancer. But now, researchers from Hanyang University School of Medicine have identified a gene that's missing in nearly 85% of patients with triple-negative breast cancer. And that gene, MEL18, could be the key to developing better treatment options for these patients. MEL18 plays a crucial role in suppressing tumor growth. In fact, breast cancer patients that do carry the gene have a much higher 10-year survival rate, nearly 98%. is just 60% for patients without the gene. Cancer is also less likely to return in patients who have MEL18. But the Korean scientists have done more than just identify this important gene. They found that it may be possible to inject MEL18 into people who are missing it. Their experiments with mice showed promising results.
Mice injected with the MEL18 gene responded much better to anti-hormone therapy compared to the ones without. The tumors were reduced to half their original size.
The team has applied for a patent for this treatment method, hoping to do further research and increase survival rates for patients with triple-negative breast cancer. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broom. Have a wonderful start to the week, and thanks as always for watching, and we do hope to see you at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye.